Let's see how many people are partying on a Saturday night. I go out like once a year. So this is Dr. Cass Ingram's book, Foods That Cure. And I actually wanted to read, what's up guys? I wanted to read this section on anemia. Because I think a lot of people are actually dealing with anemia. I was diagnosed anemic in my even vegetarian days like 10 times. So welcome. So anemia is defined as a reduction in the total amount of red blood cells in the body. It may also indicate the existence of abnormal types of red blood cells. And then it goes on, there are dozens of types of anemias. Some may be due to cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, lead poisoning, arsenic poisoning, severe chemical exposure, etc. But here's where it gets good. It says, in the vast majority of cases, the causes of anemia are nutritional, and the cure is accomplished through improved diet and nutritional supplementation. In other words, the red cells, which number in the tens of billions, are literally starving to death for lack of certain nutrients. Thus, the cure is to rebuild them nutritionally. Key nutrients to do that include amino acids, phospholipids, riboflavin, niacin, pyridoxine, folic acid, so all the B vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin E, B12, vitamin C, copper, iron, and zinc. A high protein diet is mandatory. That's why I love Cass Ingram. This guy's going to be on my podcast next week. That's why I love Cass Ingram. Protein, amino acids. Can't get enough on a vegetarian diet. Unless you start producing royal jelly in your backyard and show me how sustainable is that, it's not sustainable. You know, down a kilo of royal jelly and then try to make that in your backyard. If that's your steak replacement, even bee bread, not the same. It's helpful because most vegans aren't doing bee products, but it's not the same. So to reiterate, a high protein diet is mandatory. Obviously, red blood cells consist mainly of protein. ProudFit notes in Normal and Therapeutic Nutrition that protein should be derived from foods of the highest biological value, particularly milk, eggs, meat, and cheese. 100 to 200 grams daily is recommended. This means that an anti-anemic meal, this is the crescendo, might include a 16-ounce steak, 12 ounces of liver, or a tub of cottage cheese, instead of the typical skimpy protein portions of the modern diet. So do you guys hear that? Anemia. If you have anemia, if you have a friend that has anemia, get a steak, 16-ounce steak, 12 ounces of liver, or a tub of cottage cheese. But you'll see all these memes, oh, it's acidic, it's acid, it's mucus forming, all this BS. Wow, what a mind job, the whole vegan movement. I've been really enjoying liver. I'm gonna have this on my website. This is grass-fed beef, thyroid, and liver. It's superfood. You have B12, you have vitamin A, you have cholesterol, all the good stuff. So I've been feeling a huge boost from liver. Welcome guys. Your take on the New Zealand shooting. I did not actually hear about that. I rarely follow the news. So if I'm not anemic, I can continue my vegetarian diet then. Well, someday you probably will become anemic because you don't really have the blood builders, specifically iron. There's actually really toxic iron in plants, and the body actually can't utilize that iron. But there's something in animal foods, like a steak, called heme iron, and that actually is highly absorbable by the body. Here we go, case in point. I asked a local farmer if he could make royal jelly, and he said it was rare, as it is food for the queen. Yeah, if you buy royal jelly locally, you're lucky if you can get like that much, and it'll probably be like $60 for that little amount. So to take tablespoons and tablespoons and eat it, as your main protein source, I was a little naive. That doesn't work. Now that you're on the meat bandwagon, are you going to eat wild fish or not because they have omega-3? Or are they good fish to eat, like the lake fish? Yeah, it's a good question, Johnny. So I'm open to eating fish. Probably not going to do raw oysters because I'm 99.9% sure that those are they're not worth eating. Just say that. And I actually disagree with my main mentor, Ray Peat, on that. I'd say Dr. Raymond Peat, PhD, is at the top of my list of mentors, way above Cass Ingram, etc. And he recommends oysters once a week. Not down with raw oysters. That's a really easy way to get parasites. More than that, plastic. And it's really, really hard to get plastic out of the body. Zinc, selenium, copper. I'm going to stick with beef liver for that. I'm going to stick with grass-fed beef and bison. But that's really the biggest issue, and I'll get back to your question, Johnny, but that's the biggest issue with a vegan diet, besides the protein. How about zinc, copper, and selenium? Can't get those in plants. Okay, Brazil nuts, you better live in Brazil. Sprouted pumpkin seeds, are you growing them yourself? Do you have them stockpiled? Grid goes down, you're screwed. So zinc, copper, and selenium. Did you know sufficient selenium levels in the 300 microgram range a day reduces the risk of all cancers by 50%? Just that one trace mineral, selenium. So a lot of people forget about these, and actually when George and Mildred Burr discovered they're not essential, they're toxic. They discovered essential fatty acids. They didn't discover B6, zinc, or selenium then. So that was discovered in the 1940s from the University of Washington, and we're still, even everyone in the paleo community, Ben Greenfield, Mercola, Klinghardt, Wendy Myers, you name it, whatever name, every single podcast I listen to, omega-3s, except for Extreme Health Radio, I'll give them credit. They're my favorite. And they have had on Adam Bergstrom. They're not afraid to have different viewpoints on. I'm not afraid to have different viewpoints on. I'm going to have every viewpoint on my podcast, and that's what's going to make it so popular. I'm going to have carnivores on. I'm going to have vegans on. I'm going to have debates. Different viewpoints. I'm all hearing the same thing. Even all the mentors I've had, it's all the same information. Why did every mentor I had the same perspective of keto, ketogenic diet, low carbohydrate? Can processed sugar be medicinal? Yeah, it can. Not one of my mentors told me that. I had to find Raymond Peat, PhD, myself. I had to find Broda Barnes. I had to find Albert St. Georgie and Ray Peat's teachers. So this is where a lot of people get unlimited keto. A lot of people get confused. They say, Matt, you're making stuff up. And it's funny to hear all this flack from people that barely know me and don't know how much time and research when I see them promoting MLMs and green juice and all this bullshit. It's funny to me. Do you guys know how much time I spend researching daily? I don't take breaks, and I don't just go on benders and party for weeks like a lot of these educators do. I never stop because it's fun for me. It's actually what lights me up to research, and I don't do it for ego or all that stuff. I do it because I'm genuinely interested in the truth, and not my truth, but the truth, God's truth, the objective truth, because that exists. I don't want to ascend. I don't believe in ascension. I think no one's coming to save us, ETs or otherwise. I think that we're on our own, and that's a tough thing to swallow, but it's true. And when you have that perspective, you start to think, okay, I probably shouldn't screw people over because that's not gonna, help me get into heaven, and it's probably gonna actually lead me the opposite direction. And you start to realize that the only reason why you would acquire money is to become more self-sufficient, self-sustainable. Because if you're like another feedlot cattle going to the trough and you're just another one, you're just another cog in the machine. So why would you have money? It's to have your own beehive, it's to have your own goats, it's to have your own chickens. If that's illegal, where 99% of the chance it is, then you have to get enough money to move. But we have to realize that sustainability is the true wealth. And if we're breaking apart, if we're anemic, what good are we for the animals? And you have all these people breaking into small farms now, Joey Carbstrong, vegan activists, terrorizing pigs, having them cry, breaking up public property. That's why I have guns. I have a lot of ammo. I won't tell you how much, but I'll say thousands of rounds of ammunition. Try to break into my farm. Try to break into my house. Anyway, back to the questions. So, yeah, if you're going to eat fish, I would say limit it once a week. And I would say, salmon's okay. Don't do it for the omega-3s. That's all mind control stuff. That actually causes Alzheimer's and dementia. Just posted that study in my Facebook. The metabolism of omega-3s in the brain, this is a 2017 study, causes Alzheimer's disease. So that's like the opposite of what we've been told. And they found that the brain was actually lower in unsaturated fats of Alzheimer's patients. And there's a little troll on Facebook that I put in his place, and he was like, people posting studies, not reading what they're about. This is saying omega-3s prevent Alzheimer's. It's like, no. When the brain oxidizes unsaturated fats, they go down in the brain. Is that a good thing? No, it means they were oxidized. Now you have leukotrienes, eicosanoids, and prostaglandins, which are the three main breakdown products of omega-3s, breaking down the entire brain. So it's definitive. Omega-3 fatty acids, fish oil, algae oil, krill oil, fatty salmon, ketogenic diet, high seafood, that causes Alzheimer's disease. You add in cold thermogenesis, now you're super screwed because that actually increases lipofuscin. Some of these lifestyles being shared are super, super dangerous. And I'm really interested to see how people break down in the coming years. And, I'm going to try to help them as much as I can. I'm not going to stop sharing this information. All the sugar scare and the deuterium, it's all bullshit. The brain runs on glucose. The eyes run on glucose. Forget deuterium. That's some Timothy Leary stuff. The brain runs on sugar. The eye runs on sugar. It's like, let's start at the foundational level. What causes stress? It's the perceived need for sugar. So when the liver's out of glycogen, the body's going to be stressed. And that donut that you're reaching for, it's not the donut that's unhealthy. It's all the hydrogenated vegetable oils in the donut that's healthy. If you make a homemade donut with collagen and real sugar, it can even be CNH, whatever, and you don't do vegetable oils, that's a health food. So there's so much context involved. We've been, so many people saying all these different things. It's funny. Cracks me up. So warm water fish, if you can do that. When you vortex your water and ozonate it, do you ozonate first, then vortex? I vortex it and then I ozonate it, yeah. And just to clarify, I don't have all the answers. Like I said, I'm continually searching. But it gets frustrating when I have, friends saying, I'm eating this for the omega-3s. I'm eating oysters, omega-3s, like it's a good thing. Omega-3s are toxic, guys. They're not essential. Look into it. I'm going to have Ray Pete on my podcast. They are not essential. Like, this is something major to look into. It's like, oh, maybe this is a rabbit hole I'll look into in a couple months. No, it causes Alzheimer's. You might want to look into that tomorrow. Because if you're megadosing raw oysters because some neurosurgeon that has a belly out to here says it's good for you, I don't know about that. I would start to question. Yeah, if it's wild warm water fish, that's better. they say cold water fish have more DHA, so you want less DHA. You want more saturated fat. So again, I went into this in the podcast, but from most toxic to least toxic, it's highly unsaturated fatty acids. That's N-3. It's omega-3s. Those are poison, pure poison in any form. Try to avoid those at all costs, especially supplementation. That's DHA, EPA, and ALA. Then there's N-6, you'll read in the studies, and that's polyunsaturated fatty acids. And that is ALA. So linoleic acid, alpha linoleic acid. And then you have monounsaturated fats, like you find in olive oil and avocado, which is balanced. It's not just all mono. Olives, have it. And then safer, you have saturated fat, and then the safest, you have cholesterol. And so what we have is a culture that's been brainwashed to think that margarine and Crisco and corn oil and canola and rapeseed and all these are good. And saturated fats, especially animal foods, cause heart disease. And even if someone got past that, which a lot of people have, now you have the Alkaline Vegan News or whatever Instagram account is posting memes of Dr. Sebi, who ate fish, by the way, of saying, mucus forming, the white man's food, all this racist stuff, acid forming, mucus forming. It's all bullshit. That's all like sensationalist, emotional stuff. You have to really get past that, or else you're going to get sick. We're not just messing around. This is our health. And so, if you want to follow a fad for a little while, that's cool. Long term, you're going to end up in the hospital. Seriously. I mean, this is serious stuff. It's not just like, oh, let's get emotional and let's save the animals and let's ascend and let's go raw vegan and breatharian and celery juice and all this. No, let's get down to reality. What does the body need? It needs saturated fat, it needs glucose, and it needs amino acids. Is amino acids from, I don't know, bee pollen gonna cut it? Unfermented? No. Spoonful a day, like a lot of vegetarians or vegans do, you're getting none of that. Even if you're supplementing, pea protein, highly inflammatory. I go into this in my podcast with Cass Ingram. We talk about veganism for like 40 minutes. Pea protein, highly inflammatory. Hemp protein, highly inflammatory. I know. I did it. Rewind 7 years ago. I was making smoothies, 3 bananas, figs from my parents' yard, coconut water, coconut meat, big scoop of hemp powder, big scoop of moringa. I was putting Shilajit. I was doing it all. And I was very gassy, very bloated. People thought I was high all the time, as I said before in my last live. And I was very weak. 0 sex drive, 0 libido. Might as well have had a sex change. It was at that level. The hemp was not doing it for me. I went to the MLM protein powders. That was even worse. Gas and bloating got worse. Now, the only thing that kind of worked was coconut almond yogurt, but how sustainable is that unless you have a freaking almond orchard in your backyard? Because again, let's plan for the grid going down. That just makes sense. We're not always going to have Google and the internet and, be able to order 10 pounds of California almonds every, whenever we want. So let's plan ahead, guys, especially with our health and nutrition. And that starts with, starting your own farm. If you can't do that, making friends with local farms. And if you can't do that, go to the co-op. And just taking these steps to take back our power. How many grams of protein do you like per day? I personally shoot for 250 grams. Lately, I've been eating about a pound and a half of meat a day. And this is kind of why I made this live, is because I was going to make a couple stories on it. And then I just saw that I was going to get all these messages. So I'm not, going to write a diet book. I'm not promoting this diet. But my current one is basically honey and meat. And there's snow on the ground outside. I don't really have access to fruit. I have a few pears in the fridge. I have some passion fruit. I have an apple tree that's not producing. So if I couldn't drive to the store, what would I eat? It would be, I'm going to start having bees pretty soon. I have a beehive getting set up. So it would be honey and it would be squirrel. So it'd be honey and meat. So I'm eating the same thing I would eat if society collapsed right now. That's how I like to think. And I think that's really sustainable. And for me, it really reduces stress to think that way. Get a debate of vegan gains and Tristan. They actually already debated, but it was kind of boring. I will interview Ray, yes. What's up, David, if you're still here? What's the best way to fry beef, in coconut oil or butter? I like both. I use ghee or coconut oil. In your research, how much info are you finding that HUFAs are so bad? So I would highly recommend buying Adam Bergstrom's ebooks on yellow fat disease. I bought them all. He has about 8 books now. He wrote on lipofuscin, progressive lipofuscinosis, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, all kind of the same thing. And so it's not like a research study. Well, it is. I mean, he cites a lot of studies, but it's a reality that highly unsaturated fatty acids are the worst offenders that generate lipofuscin. And then it's a reality that lipofuscin itself creates pretty much every disease. As I've said before, it gets into the lysosomes, it gets into the retinal pigmented epithelial cells, it gets into the retina, every part of the eye. It makes sunbathing and sun gazing super toxic. It shuts down metabolism, it suffocates the cells. It pretty much breaks down the entire body. I used to think calcification was bad. This is thousands of times worse, lipofuscin, because it's like a terminal condition. And there are ways to detox, and I don't want to jump the gun and go into that, until I really have it down. But I have a few ideas, a few tricks. And the main one that's very simple, starting point, because there are more advanced ways to dissolve it, is to increase saturated fat intake. And that is done with animal foods. You can only eat so much coconut oil. So that's going to be red meat. That's going to be cheese, soy-free eggs, dairy. These are all really high in saturated fat. And that's going to displace the unsaturated fat. What are your thoughts on grass-fed lamb? I think it's good. Yeah, I know there's a lot of DHA in it, so that's why I avoid it. I also think eating veal is a little weird. It's like baby lamb, so I avoid that. I generally just stick with grass-fed beef, elk, bison, if I could find it, moose, which I haven't had yet, but that would be a good one. What would you say your top 3 wellness devices are, similar to the Somavedic? So if we're not counting Somavedic, although that's in there, let's say Blue Shield number 1. Number 2 for sure is the V-Lite 6, I think it's 655 Prime. I have it on my website, the nose light. That you really feel, because it shoots visible red light into the veins in your nose, and that pretty much, it's blood irradiation. It has a systemic effect. So it doesn't just hit the brain, but it hits the entire blood supply through the nasal cavity. So I use that for about 20 minutes a day. And then the human charger, that would be my third. Pretty much light devices. Blue Shield could be said to be a light device to some degree, but the light machines are by far my favorite. And in the summer you need those a little less because you just go outside. But again, context, a lot of people forget about that, especially educators. And they make people feel like, screw it, I'm not going to do anything because it's so complicated. I hope I'm never like that for you. Start somewhere. Just start. If you're feeling like crap and you're vegan, vegetarian, include some meat. Say you feel grass-fed, good quality meat. When are you starting a little farm? The next month, I'm going to start with bees and then move to chickens and then move to goats or sheep. Wish I could have bison here. Gotta look into that. Ascension isn't safe for so many reasons when you really think about it. Yeah. Yeah, and for me, it's like moving further into ego, just like all these people that do, all these illegal drugs and say that, they're killing their ego. Seems like they're moving further into it. Any benefits you've seen to cooking with... Oh, by the way, if there's anything you get from this video, I'm just kidding, but this is awesome. If you go to YouTube, my friend Tristan Haggard posted a video on Primal Edge Health. It's 16 minutes long. It's the funniest thing I've seen in months. I was laughing. I was almost on the floor. It's called DMT Trip Report. Primal Edge Health. If you want a little comedy, go and watch that. It's a spoof, of course, but it's really good. It kind of makes fun of these fake spiritual people. Any benefits you've seen to cooking with tallow or lard? I used to. Yeah, I might get back into it. When I used to eat pork, I would actually cook in the bacon fat, but now I just like ghee or coconut oil. I think it's better. I did get a haircut. It was getting a little crazy, and I shaved. Just sometimes it's good to get lighter, and it got warmer here, so. Spawn only. Do what you feel. I would say protein before bed. Try to avoid it. Sweet potato carbs are generally better before bed. So, for example, ice cream, relatively low in protein, pretty high in carbohydrate. So that's a good option. I think any heat or cold extreme is going to damage tissues, proteins in the body. That's a good argument. With my sauna, I'm creating heat shock proteins. And I've been kind of backing off a little bit. I might have hit that a little too hard. I was doing like daily sauna for an hour a day. And some research shows that's very beneficial, but it does make what's called heat shock proteins. And there is a stress, but I don't know of any better way to get out a lot of these toxins. Like, I have carpet in my cabin. We're always exposed to things, and eliminating it through the skin is a really good idea. What's the best way to keep blood sugar balanced? That's a really good question. So my friend Josh Rubin, Real Food Gangstas, is the master of that. Actually, I have to keep my magnesium bath going, so let's see if this is still warm. It is. Awesome. So best way to balance blood sugar is to eat frequently. And so you want to get the liver and the thyroid functioning. Wow, this is pretty hot. Let's see if this works. Okay. Bear with me with the crazy angles. There we go, I did it. Okay. So yeah, eating carbohydrates frequently is a good idea. Always pair a protein with carbs. This is what I do. I heat up filtered water, and then I actually pour it. Wow, that's hot. All right, so I haven't done a magnesium bath in like 3 days, so I'm feeling it. Yeah, so eat frequently. Always pair carbohydrates with protein. And you can take niacinamide or aspirin, and that really helps. Those are both anti-diabetic drugs. And remember that sugar doesn't cause diabetes. Unsaturated fats cause diabetes. So that's like a big thing to understand with blood sugar, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm afraid of, even processed sugar." They've used that to treat diabetes. So it's mainly the vegetable oils that you want to avoid. All right, let's see. Do you still take essential amino acids now that you eat meat? Yeah, I start the day with those. And, I'll take 10 grams and then some other things, which I'll be sharing about soon. And I feel pretty good. What are your thoughts on kombucha? I think fermented foods aren't the best. I tend to gravitate more towards them during the summer, but that lactic acid, that lacto fermentation isn't the best thing. And that's a real issue with a vegan diet is the digestive. That's why there's a lot of gassy, bloated vegans. Is because all that stuff, all that cellulose, all that tons, people think more fiber is better. That can cause a lot of issues, can cause a lot of GI stress. Tons of fiber constantly moving through. People are thriving on a 100% meat diet with zero plants. Now, do I recommend that? I don't. But people are doing it and proving that you actually don't need fiber. So, for certain conditions, yeah, there's a benefit, but PCOS in women, I would hit up Real Food Gangstas with that one during his Q&A, or just send him a DM because he has more experience with that. What was the biggest change you noticed in or about yourself when you started eating meat again? I would say stronger, more mental power, more creativity, higher libido. Everything improved. It was like, it kind of feels like a light bulb. It goes on in the brain because these B vitamins are really important. And I really like what Josh Rubin says, especially for men, is happy, healthy, horny. If you have those things going on, women too. But if you're happy, healthy, and horny, generally you're doing something right with your health. But a lot of people are not. And, going on, years and years of celibacy and not worrying about that. And, STDs and stuff are a problem, but you can also go the opposite extreme. And I see that a lot in the spiritual community where, it's been 2-3 years and they're in their early 30s or late 20s. It's like, there's something really, really wrong there with the endocrine system, with the hormones. And so what feeds the hormones? It's cholesterol, because cholesterol is the precursor to all the sex hormones. So it goes cholesterol, pregnenolone, and then down to all of them. Testosterone, DHEA, progesterone, all of them. They all start from cholesterol. And guess what? You need a thyroid hormone to make those too. So you need cholesterol, thyroid hormone, and vitamin A. Sounds like animal foods to me. Is evening primrose oil toxic? I would say it is. I've never heard anything, miraculous about it. I'm sure there's other ways to help the PMS symptoms. I think I've heard, what was the one? Well, light therapy, red light therapy. But I believe I've heard from some women that the liver really helped, the grass-fed liver. Oh, thanks for the support, guys. Appreciate it. Supplemental feed. Where would you rank GMOs on the things to avoid list? I never wrote this out or anything, but I would say artificial light. I think it's counterproductive if a family, which, let's just be real, probably most families in America, their kitchen, they have CFLs and fluorescents, and then they're eating a Whole30 diet, and they shop at Whole Foods and they spend $1,000 a week, and yet they have blue wavelength, artificial light, and they're eating dinner under it and poisoning their children. And it's hitting the skin, it's hitting the eyes, they're not protecting their eyes. To me, that's kind of number one, and GMOs would be like number probably 15. Another one would probably be the air quality. That'd probably be number 2 for me. Well, probably water than air. So, not just relying on a simple RO setup, but actually getting into water distillation, and then taking care of the microscopic pollutants. Because if you didn't listen to episode 2 of my podcast with David Milburn, we go into air quality, and it's actually not the large particles that harm us, that kill us. It's the small particles. And he talks about that in the podcast, how it's volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and there's natural and synthetic. And the ones off-gassing from your carpet, from the paint, these are synthetic VOCs, and these shut down the organs, causes cancer of every kind, shuts down the liver, on and on. And so you're, just imagine you're sleeping and you look up and the ceiling's painted, your walls are painted, you have fire retardant carpet. What are you doing without an air filter every night when you sleep? It doesn't make sense. You're taking in all that garbage. So the very start is to just get it's called a Sagano, S-A-G-A-N-O, activated charcoal pack from Amazon. I think I have that at my store, and it's called an air freshener. But that activated carbon, which has the surface area of a football field, like a tiny, tiny piece, will start to sequester those VOCs. And the next level is to get what's called an air angel, which we talk about on the podcast. And that is a $200 device that will last you probably the rest of your life. And that shoots out particles. So it's not, these air filters aren't sucking anything in, they're shooting things out. And those particles oxidize pollutants. So I take that to the hotel, and I really prioritize air quality. I think that's very overlooked. And I've woken up with a sore throat staying in hotels before. It's a very real thing because you're breathing in so much crap. So think about your living environment, your sleeping environment. Like, that's the place to start. I also like using a humidifier in the bedroom. I think that's really important and overlooked because we, in biblical times, we used to hydrate through our lungs. And so we don't do that anymore after the Great Flood. And so a way to get that back is by adding moisture while you sleep. My hair has been thinning. How can I delay thicken hair? I like zinc. I would say zinc and copper are really big there. Also, heavy metal detoxification, so far infrared saunas, because the hair is a detoxification mechanism because it pulls heavy metals out of the head. That's why there's hair mineral analysis, heavy metal tests. What type of GeoVital product? That's one that you'll have to source. Yeah, you might have to go, it depends where you are on the globe. You might have to go and get a treatment somewhere. What are the foods that cause this process? I believe you're referring to the HUFA. So that'd be nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, soy. So like the main offenders. And then every supplemental oil, vegetable oil. I would say oregano, and some of these is the fungi cleanse. Some of these are, the benefits outweigh the negatives, and they're more essential oils than anything. I'd say olive oil is probably the safest, especially if it's unheated. Make some of that right now. Been taking a lot of oregano, actually. Do you think every adult should get colonics at least once? Yeah, I think it's good after you've strengthened the system a little bit. I wouldn't just jump into that right away. But I think for someone that's going from, Carl's Jr. in and out, Jack in the Box, and they kind of had an awakening that their body is the temple of God and they were given it to experience life in its fullest, then yeah, that's a good start. But I think for someone that's been on the journey for a while, I think it can be a setback. What do you think of kefir? I think it's great. I like it mixed with colostrum and raw milk. Awesome, Aiden. Yak, that would be interesting to eat. Thoughts on chicken? It's actually high in really inflammatory amino acids. The broth is a whole nother game. So the bone broth, chicken necks, backs, feet. I used to make broths like that. That's another situation. But the muscle meat, like a lot of people that crave chicken, and I think it's a sign when I'm driving on the freeway and I see Chick-fil-A billboards every like half hour, and it says eat more chicken, but it's not in English, it's in parasite language with letters missing. That's a red flag to me. And that tells me that chicken and pork, I think these are inferior meats to consume. I think they're kind of more emergency meats, and that's how they were traditionally. In the Bible, it talks a lot about unclean meats, and pork is one of those. So, yeah, I would really limit chicken. It's the tryptophan, methionine, homocysteine. The most inflammatory amino acids are really high in chicken, and specifically the one that's the precursor to serotonin, which causes gut disorders and all sorts of neurological problems. And so that neurotransmitter serotonin is built from the amino acid tryptophan. And if someone's deficient in vitamin B6, then the tryptophan will be converted to serotonin instead of, I always forget the one. I think it's niacinamide. That's it. It's supposed to be made into niacinamide, but if someone's vegan or they're B deficient because they don't eat enough red meat, then that could be it. Because there's not a lot of B vitamins in chicken. It's not that nutritious of a meat. You're really looking at red meat. Ideas on dealing with chronic anxiety and social anxiety. Make sure you stock up on magnesium. That's a really big one. Do a lot of magnesium baths, magnesium chloride, and I would say really just focus on building your confidence. So I used to have that problem years ago, and so just put yourself in uncomfortable situations intentionally, and it might take years, but eventually you will get out of that. So like kind of just whatever causes the social anxiety and the chronic anxiety, like notice your triggers and then put yourself intentionally in those situations. But make sure that you have the foundation first nutritionally, like enough amino acids from red meat and enough magnesium, and then you'll be able to actually process it and move through it. I think it's just stuck energy that you can eventually process, but you have to keep going into it to do it. What do you think of canning? Yeah, I think canning is a great idea. I definitely want to learn how to do that. Oh, thanks, Robin. I appreciate that. What's wrong with drugs? Well, from what I see, they're causing a lot of issues in our society. And yeah, I've gone into this in past lives, but when we talk about cannabis, alcohol, tobacco, and I'm talking about the good versions of those, like dry farm irrigation wine. I'm talking about organic, pure tobacco without 5,000 chemicals in it. Cannabis that was not grown with tap water and NPK fertilizer. I think these things could be used intelligently, but when we get into the hardcore stuff, like the psychedelics that was made popular by the CIA, as Jan Irving talks about, I think that's a problem, because I think a lot of these entities that people see in these experiences, like the machine elves, are talking about depopulation. We need less humans on the planet, and I don't think those entities that people are interacting with have the best intentions. What type of radiation deflecting cell phone case do you recommend? The Brink case It's like a pretty good one, but I don't really endorse any particular one. What's your recommendation on Candida? Turn off the Wi-Fi router at night, unplug it. Oregano, see my post on oregano. Those 3 products, I'd do like each one a week. That's what I would do if I had Candida. And I would actually increase the sugar consumption. Some biohackers people say dairy, devoid of nutrition unless it's raw. Yeah, I think that's extreme. A lot of people can do pasteurized dairy. It really depends. Like if your body can make the lactase enzyme, then you're good. And sometimes you might need a 23andMe test and then run it through another website like Xcode is Beyond Prometheus and the other websites, and have your DNA analyzed and really figure out if you can make enough lactase. And if you can't, then you just take a lactase enzyme. It's pretty simple. But dairy contains nutrients that plants don't. And, you know, milk and almond milk and macadamia milk and all these fake milks cannot compare to bovine dairy. They're not even close in nutrition. Cow dairy and goat dairy is far superior. It just matters if you can digest it. And it went into this with Cass Ingram. Dairy products are the most digestible. That's another little mind game that the vegans have played on us to say, oh, dairy products are not digested. It just feeds the parasites and all this bullshit. No, they're the most digested. And there's a reason why it was talked about in the Bible with honey. Honey and milk are the most digestible foods on this globe. Why not eat some pork? Best source of B12, B1. Thiamine, I mean, thiamin's pretty easy to get. You know, red meat has it. There's thiamine in liver. So, yeah, I'm not really. Some people get kind of crazy and say you have to eat meat raw, you have to eat organ meats, you have to do broth, you have to do all this. I would say the broth is like the minimum. Once you start getting into organ meats, like the thymus, the heart, the liver, can get a little weird. So I would say just basic. If someone just eats muscle meats, okay, that's inflammatory by itself. Just add in some bone broth. That would at least help. And that, to me, that's not that gross. And that's pretty easy for most people to do. You just buy the bones, you get a slow cooker, and you have the complementary amino acids to balance out the muscle meat. How about sweating through physical activity to get out toxins? You're in a sympathetic nervous system state, and so in the sauna, when you're just sitting there, you're in a parasympathetic. And so different toxins are released in those different states of the nervous system. Lyra, yeah, I think she's in the closet. I have to find her. Why niacinamide instead of niacin? So niacin stimulates the release of highly inflammatory prostaglandins, histamine, and serotonin. And that's what gives you the flush. It's the histamine release. Now that's not good. And this was started by L. Ron Hubbard that founded the Church of Scientology. So you got a question. And so, you know, that's in the book. And so niacinamide has all of the benefits of niacin with none of the detriments and no flush. So that flushing effect, people think, oh, it's a detox and I'm opening up the capillaries and all this new age stuff. No, you're actually poisoning the system. It's not a good detox. You're hurting people with sharing that information. So niacinamide is a cheap supplement. It's cheaper than nicotinamide riboside. It's cheaper than nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, NAD. People are paying a lot to get that injected. Just take niacinamide. It's like $10 a bottle. I take like a gram a day. And again, that is anti-diabetic. If you're predisposed or you know a diabetic, they should be on niacinamide and or aspirin. Which tea kettle do you recommend? I actually don't use a tea kettle. I'm not sure. What progesterone do you recommend? Progest E is a good one. It's vitamin E and progesterone. And they include a really awesome information packet with it. Do you not have lights in your house? I have some lights. I have red lights in the bathroom, and candlelight, and I have these oil lamps. And yeah, that's why I'm really excited to actually get my beehive, is because I'm going to start making my own candles from the wax that I produce in my backyard. So one step at a time. To me, this is the year that I figure out self-sustainability, because a lot of people have different stressors. You know, it's their kids, it's their job. For me, it's sustainability. What would I do with no gas, no electricity, no power, you know, nothing, no water, nothing? Think about that often. I think that's a good mental exercise for everybody to do. Oh, thanks for the support, guys. What do you think about the medical medium? You know, I think he's a salesman. I think he's a good marketer, like Dave Asprey. Did a good job. People say, oh, you know, he's not making money on celery juice. No, he's selling a lot of books. And, you know, he's been on TV and all this stuff. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, it's a fad, you know, just like Pokemon Go. I remember that years ago. And, you know, like all these MLMs, they come and go, these trends. I mean, they're not going to last. So I think it's really about coming back to human physiology and how the body works, and not waiting for studies, not asking for studies, not looking for studies. Open up Geitman's physiology textbook. Open up a physiology book. That's the liver. That's the liver's connection to the thyroid. Okay, no study required. T4 to T3, 90% in the liver. Okay, how does the liver do that? It needs sugar. It needs glycogen to convert inactive thyroid hormone to active. Why would we want thyroid hormone? Why do we need T3? How about to make energy in every cell in the entire body? Now, from that perspective, does a keto diet make sense? Does restricting sugar make sense from a physiology standpoint? It doesn't. It doesn't at all. And causing a lot of stress to the body. Fat loss. Eat more. Eat more frequently. Restrict unsaturated fats. If you want to talk about toxins, let's talk about DHA. Let's talk about EPA. Let's talk about ALA. Let's talk about the handfuls of nuts and seeds, that granola that you're eating every day. You know, it's about the quantity. It's not about, you know, I can never have granola in my entire life. I can never have nuts and seeds. Soy is pretty easy to avoid. But when we get into like the extracts, like the oils, that's where it becomes super, super, super poisonous. So really increase saturated fat, increase the good sugars, fruits, roots, raw honey, and maple syrup, and that will help with weight loss. I would also say wear blue blocking glasses at night. That's like a big one, because blue light makes you fat over time. Can children take oregano oil? Yes, it's safe for all ages. Is the juice milder than the oil? It is, yep. Thyroid antibodies high, but TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, levels good. Any insight? I prefer not to end up on meds. That would be more of a question for Josh Rubin. He says he doesn't, you know, deal with labs. Me neither. I know with the thyroid test, there's like 6 parameters that you actually have to look at. There's T3, there's reverse T3, there's T4, there's RT4. There's, like you said, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which is a bad thing. People think, you know, oh, stimulated, good, high. No, you want low TSH. So I know a few things about thyroid panels, but I would consult like Danny Roddy. I could look up Danny Roddy thyroid. I think he has some stuff on good levels for labs and stuff. But basically just a repeat approach. You know, avoid keto like the plague. Eat frequently, eat sugar frequently, eat a lot of saturated fat and get a lot of protein in, a lot of broth. What's a good brand and form of magnesium to take orally? I like magnesium L-threonate, and doesn't really matter the brand. Just find one that's affordable. Health benefits of xylitol. Yeah, I think there are some benefits. I do. You just remind me. Vykind. Where is it? This is the one. I think this is actually his Valentine's Day one. I've been rationing it, and really good. I actually use it to clean the teeth, and I have these on my website. Awesome guy. So xylitol, I know they make gum. Advent, where is it? Absent here. Spry, not bad. They use xylitol. I feel the difference. But you know, the whole sugar screws up the teeth. That's a whole myth too. It's the stickiness. It's the dehydration. You do straight sucrose, it goes right down. It doesn't stick to the teeth. It's certain types of sugar, and it's when you're dehydrated. That's when sugar harms the teeth. What was the combo of amino acids you were telling me about? I don't remember, Brian. Was it the master amino pattern? I'm not sure. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I think it was the, this was introduced to me by my friend Jay. Where is it? Oh my gosh, I need a light. Okay. Let's see. This stuff. Yeah, Arnox. This is kind of like a pre-workout. I like trying all sorts of crazy supplements. My friend Jay Denman of the Jinx Slingers told me about this. This, I think you can only get it through practitioners. But nitric oxide. And unfortunately, through my research, I've learned that NO is not ideal for health. It's actually inflammatory. But I think in context of my situation, being out of non-native EMF, NO is okay in small amounts. But if you're living in the city, generally from the EMF, you have a lot of nitric oxide already. And when that binds to cytochrome C oxidase in the cell, then you make less energy. And so I would use this only when you're out of the city, you know, especially long term. My candida eczema is dying on a juice cleanse, but the oregano does cause it to stop reacting. Not sure what that means, but it sounds interesting. Your thoughts on a Enagic Kangen water machine? Not a fan. I think we're overly alkaline. We need to acidify. 2-minute warning. How do you draw close to God? Katie, I would just get a old school Bible. This is a 1901 version, and just sit in front of the fire and read a page a day. And that's a good way to do it. What's up, Ryan? Well, thank you all for joining. Let's see how many questions I have. Oh wow, I'm almost caught up. That's good. I'll do these more often. Appreciate all the comments. These are interesting. I'll share, and yeah, keep them coming. God, it says encore. It's 10 o'clock. You guys have to get to bed, don't you? It's Saturday night. Appreciate you joining. Journey continues. Meat and honey diet. That's what I'm eating right now. So don't DM me. It's working for me. Try it out. Grass-fed beef, grass-fed bison, all that good stuff. And thanks for the support with the podcast. Dr. Cass Ingram next week, and then Blue Shield the following week. And then I have really exciting guests lined up. So thank you all. Have a great night.